What about for budget players? How do you, as a budget player, avoid falling into the scrub mentality of, well, um, my deck's not doing good because I'm a budget player, and so you make suboptimal choices for deck building.
Yeah, it's like if
I automatically say beat down decks.
what?
Beat down unstructured decks. If
was,
someone doesn't have a lot of money and they want to play, tell them to play Crusadia.
I'm not. I'm not.
Ryan's proposing the question: how does one avoid the pitfall of the budget deck? Because when you play a deck that is not a tier 1 deck, you start running into the idea that, or you start running into the fact that when you take it to a competitive tournament, you will most likely not win because their decks are tier 1 because everyone's playing them. That's the definition of the tier list, and everyone's playing them most likely because it's a very good deck. There'd be no reason any deck could be tier 1 if everyone just decided to play it one day, but there'd have to be some weird consensus for everyone to be playing.
It would be meta, but it wouldn't necessarily be tier 1.
Meta and tier 1 is different.
Yes.
I feel.
No, it's the same thing. The tier list is the meta. It's just
most of the time is if like you said, if the scenario where everyone decided to play UA for a tournament and there were 300 UA players, that would be the meta of that tournament, but it would not be the highest tier.
Well, no, because you got to assume that
tier lists are based on weaknesses and disadvantages. Meta is based on representation, so
you're derailing my point.
Yes, Dave, continue.
Right. Can't let you be right.
So you go to a tournament and you're playing Paleos because you're me, and that's the deck I always reference because it's the one I'm playing currently, so I can speak to it. And I lose. Let's just make the brash assumption that I lost.
Let's go to this alternate reality of a world where Dave actually lost.
Lost the Paleos again.
In a world of infinite possibilities.
What's preventing me from entering the pitfall saying, oh, I lost simply because I'm playing a budget deck, so at this point I just don't care, so now I'm going to start making bad plays, I'm not going to build my deck optimally, I'm going to put weird janky crap in it just for the fun of it, and then, like...
Yeah, so...
Help me, Ryan, where am I going with this?
So you lean into the budget, so you play... not optimized cards, like it's a fun card. It's my personal preference. I like this card.
I won games with it, so I can't take it out.
Magic Cylinder. It's won me games. You're playing Paleos. It's a trap. I'll play Magic Cylinder.
Yeah. So I guess the idea is that you kind of how do you stop yourself from getting into a self-feeding cycle where it's like, yeah, you didn't care at the first place, so now you just don't care at all. And then when someone tries to tell you otherwise, that maybe you should care, and it would actually get you to win a duel, so you can stop complaining.
Right.
You somehow take it personally, even though all of this was by your own design.
Yeah, it really is, and I think as I am definitely a budget player and have kind of fallen into. No, you spend way too much money on cardboard. I felt. Right? That makes perfect sense. No, I fell into Pendulum Editions because of the Pendulum Evolution box. And that just happened to be a cheap tier 1 deck that I've slowly added pieces to and slowly traded up for some actually decently expensive cards. But having come up... Good God, man. Rude.
Sorry.
But having come
that time it wasn't me.
Having come from literally sneak peek trash can filler,
like UA.
Sneak peek trash can filler. It's that really causes you to learn how to optimize a deck, and if you actually care about doing well competitively, looking at card and saying, even though I really like this card, even though it did win me that one game, it does not belong in my deck.
And yeah, and that's the flip side of the coin, is that if you can avoid the pitfall of just being like, oh well, it's a bad deck, so I can make bad decisions, and you start actually, min-maxing this thing and making good deck building decisions, you give a damn and you treat it like it's a tier 1 deck, even though it's sneak peek trash can filler. You will find that as the budget player, you are slowly evolving into the rogue player, and you are now starting to actually become a good player. And because nothing teaches you how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! When you are systematically the underdog, where every decision you make can cost you the duel, where you have the Sky Striker player who can maybe play a couple of his cards out of order, and it was kind of suboptimal, but he will still most likely win every game he plays, where if you make that same kind of slightly suboptimal decision, it will cost you the entire tournament, because you have no margin of error.
None whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever.
It's the sexual thrill of battle.
And
so
that
nasty.
will teach you how to play some freaking Yu-Gi-Oh!
And then on the off chance that you do happen to fall into a very cheap meta deck like ABCs or Pendulums or Monarchs
Heroes,
or
when they were
Monarchs,
Monarchs.
taking
Great
Oh
example.
boy, I can't wait for 3 Stormforce.
oh yeah, right.
I
But
felt like someone's taking a shot at me.
being able to
I never
I
liked
didn't know
Jason.
you played Monarchs.
Loved you too, boo boo.
he plays two Draco, which is the
Oh.
the worst kind of Monarch.
Which I think is the reason
The worst
Monarchs
kind of
is
Monarch.
The worst kind of.
He doesn't have the common decency of tributing monsters to some of his guys.
But regardless,
Cheating over there, someone tributing his traps.
the end cap of the whole discussion is taking the time to competitively look at your budget bad deck will benefit you if you do pick up an actually decent competent deck. So you can have your you can have your other deck boxes full of your fun stuff, but treat those like good decks, and then have your tournament deck be equally optimized so that you don't fall into the pitfall of
best.
scrub mentality.
One thing you might notice